How do you interpret this, objectively or subjectively? After a couple of decades, I've come around to Israel Rigadi's opinion, which is that it's best not to try to answer that question. Whatever answer you come up with, your next experience will contradict it. I find it very useful to think in terms of Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. What does Jung mean by the collective unconscious? It's got to be inside me if I can contact it at all, but it's inside everybody else too, right? So it's inside and outside at the same time. And that also applies to Sheldrake's theory of the morphogenetic field, which, for instance, one of the things that suggested the morphogenetic field to Sheldrake was experiments by McDougall at Harvard, where smart rats were bred with smart rats and stupid rats were bred with stupid rats, and they were tested over generations at maze solving. And as genetics would predict, the smart rats bred with smart rats got better and better at solving the mazes. The dumb rats bred with dumb rats didn't get worse and worse. They got better and better too. McDougall found this so astonishing that he repeated the experiment more than once. He did several. And it's been repeated in Australia and Scotland and various other places, and the rats are learning faster and faster. This can only be explained in terms of something that's inside every rat and it's outside every rat, in the sense that it's in every other rat too. And that's sort of the way the collective unconscious, the morphogenetic field, or the neurogenetic circuit function.
Bob, what is the essence of this sixth circuit?
The experience of transcending time. Saturn was the god of time. The experience of feeling that this body right here and now is only a cross-section of a process that has been going on for 4 billion years approximately on this section of space-time, and may be related to similar processes going on elsewhere in space-time, possibly. It's a sense of immortality, in a sense that when this body dies, the genetic vector of which this body is an expression will just continue through time. And that the rules and laws governing that level cannot be yet, maybe never will be, put into really scientific terms, even as we decode the genome. The only way to really begin to understand it is by direct experience of the archetypes, whatever the hell they are and wherever they come from.
Does this give us an even higher level of freedom than the fifth circuit?
Well, if it correlates with Gurdjieff the way I'm trying to make it correlate, yeah, we have even higher freedom there. And a worse sense of responsibility. It's like the Buddha's doctrine of karma. My God, everything I do is going to have effects for the rest of eternity. If you really believe that, and it's hard to doubt it in the light of most of the data of modern science, nothing stops, everything just transforms. So if I do an evil deed, the effects of that are going to go on forever. The only place it stops being evil is when it reaches somebody who's trained in the Buddhist, yogic, or psychedelic, or some type of system where they know how to transform energy, and they say, gee, I just got a lot of bad energy, I'm not going to pass that on, I'll turn it into good energy before I pass it on. That's known as the great work in alchemy, and it's the goal of Buddhism and Taoism and most of the Oriental religions.
So if the neurosomatic circuit helps to increase our compassion, the neurogenetic circuit increases our loving kindness.
And hilaritas. That's a word I picked up from Ezra Pound's cantos. He quotes Themistoplaton, a virtually forgotten Byzantine philosopher of the 14th or 15th century, I forget which, that you can recognize gods, even if they appear in human form, by their outstanding hilaritas, which is related to the English word hilarity and hilarious, but in classic late Greek of Platon's time, it meant basically cheerfulness, good humor, as we would say, but not in the sense of always joking. And in the Pound's cantos, the dominant forces that towards the end of the poem that take over and appear in all sorts of forms are amor and hilaritas, love and cheerfulness. I think I've become a much more cheerful person over the years, in spite of a lot of tragedies, which everybody has tragedies. I think I've become a much more cheerful person because as you tune on to the higher circuits, you get more and more distance from second circuit, emotional, egotistic problems, and more sense of the unity and harmony of everything that's going on. And your total unimportance in the major picture, really. No, you're not totally unimportant, but you're much less important than you think you are.
So it's the big perspective of the Sixth Circuit that increases the good humor.
Well, it's the sense that, yeah, I've seen this show before. What are they bringing this out of the mothballs and rerunning it again?
Is there a kind of harmonic relationship between these two sets of four circuits? Is Circuit 5 a kind of higher version of Circuit 1?
Yeah, and in a sense, Circuit 6 is a higher version of Circuit 2, etc. Yeah. You might say the second four circuits are the first four circuits with more flexibility built into each one of them. More multiple choice. We really like to use the metaphor of the television set. The first four circuits mean that you got four programs you got to look at every day, all day long. The second four circuits means you discover you got an infinite number of channels, and you can turn the channels any way you want and pick up any signals you want. You don't have to keep repeating the same four shows over and over.
So where do we go with the Seventh Circuit?
Well, here's where I departed from Leary's system entirely and brought in some John Lilly. In my books, I call it the metaprogramming circuit. This is the circuit where you begin to reach the level of dialing and redialing your circuits to the extent that you become sort of like a computer that can program itself. To talk about this at all seems totally unbelievable to people who've been heavily imprinted by the fundamentalist, materialist reality tunnel. But Christian Science, faith healing in general, and things like that are examples of how people's neurological programs can absolutely overrule things that would be deadly to people without that flexibility. Every type of genius, I think, results from metaprogramming. Beethoven broke through the dimensions of music that nobody even knew existed before him. You can metaprogram yourself into all sorts of places.
So how does it work, or what is the experience like of the Seventh Circuit?
Well, let's put it this way. Two guys are hit by cars and they're dragged into the hospital. One is a normal four-circuit human being, typical of this level of structure. What's going to happen to him depends entirely on the skill of the doctors and the degree of the injury. The other guy, let's make it a woman, she has a Seventh Circuit personality, and she knows a lot of it depends on her, so no matter what the hell the doctors tell her, she keeps telling them, I'm going to get better, I'm not going to die, you're all wrong, and she does get better and surprises them. This happens so often that there are two books about it, Spontaneous Remission, and they're both out of print. Doctors really don't want to think about it.